Welcome back, I'm Ryan from Blue Gaming, and this is my thoughts on the Battlefield 1 beta. Now, I've already talked about each of the classes individually and my thoughts on each of the classes in previous videos. All four of those videos, one for each class, will be linked in the description down below. This is just kind of my thoughts on the more overall experience of Battlefield. There's only one thing that I really have to clear up about the previous videos, and that is during the support class video. I said that I would have to use the MG17 a little bit more to give some actual thoughts on it, because that was the only weapon that I hadn't unlocked yet when making each of those videos, and that is the weapon that you're currently seeing me use in the background. And I gotta say that it is probably the best light machine gun in the beta so far. It is amazing. You'll see the rest of this gameplay in the background will be me using that weapon, and I gotta say, sometimes it is a deadly laser gun, and it is amazing. Moving into the actual game, let's start out with a really big problem that I've been seeing happen around the place, and that is the amount of things that are actually done client side instead of actual server side. The most noticeable of these is the dynamic weather effects and how they happen. If it was server side, then everybody would have all the same weather at the same time. The problem with doing that is then it slows down the connection and the connectivity of everybody else, and it would make the well, it could make the game lag. I don't know the intricacies of how it works, but from what I understand, it would lessen the actual playing experience. So they have that dedicated to the client side, and actually have your console do the weather effects in the game. Now, the problem that this causes in the actual application is sometimes you will have weather effects and other people won't. So if there's a sandstorm coming in, sometimes you'll have a sandstorm going, sometimes you won't have a sandstorm going. Sometimes it'll be really foggy on the map, and sometimes it won't be. This is pretty much a pretty big problem that I've seen them working on. I've heard that they are working on a fix for it, because this causes some major balancing issues, because in my own experience, there's people just running around in the middle of the desert not knowing what's going on, because say there's a sandstorm going on, and I could be out there sniping and not have any weather going on and just pick them off like it's nothing because they can't see where I am. And this causes major balancing issues. Now, from the time that I've played with other people, I can personally account for this happening twice. There was one time where it was a sandstorm and I was having it and my friend wasn't. Another time was a fog encounter, which is something that happens much less, if I can speak properly, much less frequently than a sandstorm. This I've only had happen less than 5 times in all my time of playing, and it was happening for my friends and not for me, and so it gave me the advantage in that situation, and I hope that they get this fixed before the full game comes out. Some other major problems that we're having in the beta so far is sometimes you will spawn with your weapon and several different things unequipped. This can be somewhat not so severe as having, say, one of your gadgets not spawning with you, maybe not having your sidearm, to more serious problems such as spawning with nothing, which so far there is a fix for it. The problem is if you don't fix it in this one specific way, which is completely restarting your PlayStation or whatever console you have. And I'm saying an actual like hard restart. Thankfully, the PlayStation has a actual restart option. You have to do a hard restart on PlayStation, and essentially you don't have to do that from what I've heard on the PC. You just have to restart the game on PC. But yeah, on consoles you have to completely restart it. Yeah, if you don't do that, you will go into more and more games and you will lose. From what I've seen, it's it goes more and more. Like, one game, you might just have one thing missing, then you join in another game and you'll have maybe 2 or 3 things missing, and then join another game and you'll have more things missing, if not everything. The next and final big problem is kit progression in the game. Essentially, to get new weapons for a kit, you have to level it up, and there's 10 levels throughout the entirety of a specific kit. So yeah, you unlock that new weapons by getting new levels. The problem is that the experience for that bar, first off, a lot of people don't know how to get that experience, which is quite simple. You simply just use your gadgets and get points using your gadgets, and that's how you get it. The other problem is, after you join into a lobby and you finish your first game in said lobby, well, the second one and all of them there on out will not get you any experience. So the quick fix for that is to join a new lobby in between every single game, but I know that that can get annoying, especially for putting together groups. So yeah, they need to get that fixed as well. But those are really only the 3 big problems that are in the beta. The rest of them are pretty small problems. One of them you can actually see quite easily on my gun. When I run around and turn the corners and just like rotate around quickly with my gun, you'll see that the barrel kind of turns invisible for a little bit. That happens occasionally on some weapons. It's normally like the bayonet or something that turns invisible. Not that big of a problem. You can still use the items like the bayonet and such, but yeah, it's just a little graphical thing. Another one is the ragdolls, once you die, have a tendency of just flying out to space. This doesn't happen all that often, but still something that can be a little bit of a concern. I did see somewhere online where a person did get killed by a flying body, so that's a little something. But that's more funny than really that big of a problem. It's just something that they could work on. Another small little problem is, say you're joining a game when a weather effect is just starting. It will restart its position where in your game. This kind of jumps off the previous thing that I talked about, where you wouldn't get weather effects. Where other people would. This is just kind of a delay in said weather effect. It's not really that big because you're still getting that weather effect. It just takes a good 30 extra seconds for you to get it. Another small little thing is occasionally grounds and buildings will just fall for no reason. This I've only seen once, but yeah, it's just something that happens randomly. One downside that goes along with this is you can't completely destroy buildings anymore, which kind of sucks. I guess this has actually been in there for the last previous games, but I heard somewhere, and I believe that it was from someone at the place that makes this, Dice, I believe it is. It's late at night, you're gonna have to give me a little bit of leeway. But I believe that it was somewhere said that we would have something close to Battlefield Bad Company in its destruction, but we don't have that, so that's a little bit of a letdown. Moving on, just one final thing. The round timer in the game felt a little bit short. In the last several days of this beta, they stopped using the round timer. It went from counting down to counting up, which I don't know if that was a glitch in the first few days, but they've completely taken it out right now. And yeah, the timer really just didn't give enough time. I would only get through about half of a conquest match before it would end, so it really needs to be quite a bit longer if you have a time limit at all. I'd rather just not having a time limit, because a game without a time limit will only take about 30 minutes. It's not that long for some big match to happen. And that's pretty much all the negatives that I've gone through in this. So let's move into the positives. The first of which is the two special classes that you could pick up around the map. One of them was the flamethrower class, and then the other one was the heavy machine gun class. Both of those were pretty good additions. The flamethrower, I kind of wish that we could use that outside of just a weapon pickup, but it's really fun to use. That's pretty much the story with a lot of things in this game. Is pretty much everything is just really fun to use, and that's really kind of good, and that kind of outweighs the problem of this game not being so realistic, because if this game did want to go on realism in a World War I setting, there would be a lot of sitting around doing nothing, because it was really just every once in a while that you would actually get some combat in World War I. So one small downside, they go back to the downsides, is that it's not realistic, but because of how fun it is, I can excuse them. I can also excuse them because this is the only World War I AAA game that has come out yet, and actually, just thinking off the top of my head, I only know of 5 World War I games. One of them being Verdun, one of them being this game, 2 of them being browser games, and one of them being an app. So this game gets a little bit of leeway because of it being a World War I setting for the realism section. The next thing that I have to give this props for is the location. Not a single World War I game that I can think of goes goes outside of Europe, and definitely not to Africa. This is a really good thing. From what we've seen, I would guess that a sizable portion of the game is set in Africa, or at least outside of Europe, and that's always really great to see, because too often people forget that that the world wars were fought outside of Europe, even though the majority of the fighting did take place in Europe. The next thing that I really gotta give them props for is that now your character that you're playing actually feels like he's a trained soldier using a weapon that he's been trained with, because the amount of recoil, which is normally how you can tell this, the gun control that the character has is very good. It's not like Titanfall levels of good, because if you have seen Titanfall gameplay, you'll know that the guns have barely any recoil, and it just feels like the person that you're playing as has actual knowledge and training with the weapon, and that comes across more in this. There's only really one weapon, and it's an SMG that has that feels like you have no idea what you're doing with it. That I brought up in my actual assault class video, which you can check out in the description. Yeah, it's just kind of something that you don't see in a whole lot of video games. Even Call of Duty, with all of its iterations, is guilty of using some weapons that you don't really feel like the player has training with. The next thing that I really have to give props for is actually a negative for most people, and that is the variety of weapons that you actually get to use in this. Normally, that would be a downside for something that's trying to go for somewhat historical accuracy. But with World War I, it's kind of special because most of these prototype weapons that you're seeing in the game were not in use in World War II. So, what game are you going to use those weapons in? You aren't seeing the LMGs and the submachine guns and some of the semi-automatic rifles that you see in this game. They got outclassed by the time World War II came around. So it really is kind of an extra thing to see these weapons actually get some use. And that's pretty much all that I can think of off the top of my head for my thoughts on this game. Just some final things on it. I'm probably going to be getting this like day 2, and I would not recommend picking this up day 1. Even with all the good stuff that I'm talking about this game, it is still EA, and yeah, their games don't always launch with the best things. So I would wait to see how the game does on launch, but I am definitely going to be picking this up as soon as they fix some of the launch problems that I'm going to guess that they're going to have. If they don't have any launch problems, well then I'm gonna just pick it up right on day 2, right as soon as my store opens. This is really something that I've been waiting for a while, ever since Verdun was in early access years ago. I've been waiting for something that was World War I related, with it being my favorite historical war to like learn and talk about. It's really great to see some more things done with World War I and the time period. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Remember, I'm Ryan from Blue Water Gaming, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
We have lost Objective George. Charlie.
Tayyare görüldü.
We have lost objective apples.
Bir düşman silahına doğru bakıyorum.
We have taken objective butter.
Tayyare, gördünüz mü? Düşman bölgeye gitmiş bildirildi. Bomba gidiyor.
We are losing objective Charlie.
Bir asker görüldü. Düşman tankı.
We have taken objective apples.
Hücum kıtası askeri görüldü. Düşman tankı görüldü.
We are winning. Kıtası askeri görüldü. Dikkat! Bomba atıyorum! We have taken objective Freddy. We have taken objective Duff.